So the state of feminism today, I think it is being renewed and redefined. And I am going to speak more from the American perspective, but to some extent the British perspective, although in some ways Britain is ahead of the United States. In others, it's behind. So renewed precisely because yet another generation of women has discovered that no, this has not been fixed, that in fact, although they were told when they're growing up they can do absolutely anything and they are equal with boys, and if anything, they are outpacing boys in school and in graduate school, and I say I'm a feminist by day and a worried mother of boys by night, and my boys sort of assume that it's the natural state of the world that the girls are smarter than they are in school, which the feminist in me loves and the mother does not. So a new generation's discovered, notwithstanding all of this, we're still stuck. We're stuck at 20% women in a good industry, and in a bad industry, 10%, even 5%. That is, I think, what Sheryl Sandberg tapped into with Lean In, and other people writing books saying, wait a minute, you know, we need a new surge of feminism. That's part of what my article triggered, the sort of renewed efforts to get women on boards, to do what I call confidence feminism, right? To teach women how to act like men. And to teach women how to act like men and ask for what they want and push themselves forward. So that's being renewed. I also think feminism is being redefined. Well, actually, if I'm honest, I'm trying to redefine it. But let's put it in the passive voice, which is to say that I think if we're going to get to full equality between men and women, which is really the goal, right? That's what we want. We want full equality between men and women. Then we have to focus less on advancing women to top jobs and more on valuing the work that women have traditionally done, the work of care, the work of investing in other people and feeling as much pride when they succeed as when you succeed. When you're raising children or investing in students or mentoring people, or at the other end of life when you are trying to ensure that people you love and who cared for you have their very best day, every day. And if we value that work, and we value it as individuals, as care is a huge part of who we are, and we grow when we do invest in others, just as when we invest in ourselves, when we make room for care in the workplace, we assume this is a natural part of all human lives, and we are simply going to have to accommodate it at different times in different workers' lives, but that's a condition for everyone. And when nationally we invest in an infrastructure of care just as much as we invest in the infrastructure of competition that we know is necessary for a healthy economy and society. So we need to change the lens. We need to focus on valuing not just women for what they can do to be like men and continue to value men, but to value the traditional work of women, and we'll talk about this, that means valuing it when men do it and assuming that men will do as much care in the home as we now expect women to bring in as much income in the office. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. And now for a historical perspective, we're going to turn to the prize-winning historian Amanda Foreman, who wrote the best-selling book Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, which won the Whitbread Prize. And more recently, she presented the acclaimed BBC documentary series The Ascent of Woman, which charted our rise over the past 10,000 years. Please welcome Amanda Foreman.
I think that Anne-Marie has got to the heart of the matter, which is how do we redefine feminism for the future? And it reminds me of a well-known joke that some of you probably already do know, which is, how many feminists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is none. It's not the light bulb that needs changing. And the the point about that is that in order to redefine the future, you need to know your history. Because if you don't know it, then others will redefine your history for you. And I'll give you an example. The idea of patriarchy and the idea that women have always been the second sex, is that true? Well, the answer is no. In fact, patriarchy is very much the new kid on the block. If you go back to only 8000 BC and you look at the oldest town that we know of, 8000, that's not very long ago in the great template of humanity. In 8000 BC, there's a town, it is called Çatalhöyük in Turkey. It had about 10,000 inhabitants. And what we know from that town is that men and women did the same work in the same place. They ate the same diet. They were buried in the same place and in the same way. So that then, at the dawn of civilization, you have gender equality. And what happened next came many thousands of years later. And what that tells us is that patriarchy is human-made. And what can be made can be unmade.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Helena Cronin, is the Darwinian philosopher at the London School of Economics. And she's a leading expert on the evolutionary understanding of sex differences. And she wrote the best-selling book, The Ant and the Peacock, Altruism and Sexual Selection, which is one of the New York Times' 9 best books of the year. Helena, please give us your perspective.
Thank you. Now, why in medicine are men from surgery and women from pediatrics? In law, men from corporate, women from family specialties. Why are the professions as a whole split as they are nowadays, 50-50 male-female, but most professions and the specialties within them typically men's or women's? Why men at the top? Why, though the sexes are equally intelligent, are there different male-female distributions at all? Why do women, but not men, feel most satisfied with part-time work? Why the pay gap? And why are such patterns universal, transcending countries and cultures? The answer, according to current feminism, is anti-female bias and barriers. But that can't be the whole story. Here's why. 2 things. First, the science of sex differences. Evolved male-female differences in interests and temperaments give rise to different life priorities, such as, do you prefer to work with people or things? Do you favor planability or do you relish risk? Second, organizational analysis of the professions. Different kinds of work intrinsically dictate different needs. A brain surgeon might meet unexpected difficulties, a lawyer work all night on a client deadline. It's not arbitrary that they can't get home for dinner. Now, together, these 2 insights provide an immensely powerful framework, both explanatory and predictive. You can do the following, and we've done it in our research. Put in any data from any profession, in any country, at any period, and the hitherto elusive answers to those perennial questions that I just asked, and more, will be revealed. Feminism should take that science seriously.
Thank you for that challenge to feminism. And now Daniel Glaser, who is a neuroscientist and is director of the Science Gallery at King's College London. Will you all please welcome Daniel?
I hope as the only male on the panel I'm not the pantomime villain, but I thought I would do a quick experiment in my opening bit just to prove a point I want to make. And the point I want to make to you is that while we do recognize differences in what women do and men do, and where they're found in terms of professions and so on, one of the biggest challenges which I think we have to overcome if the feminist project is to succeed is differences of how they are seen. the difference between the way that women and men are seen. And I'm going to claim that those differences, the different seeing, doesn't depend so much on whether it's the man or the woman doing the seeing. It's about whether they're looking at a man or a woman. So what I want to prove to you with a quick experiment is that what you are seeing changes what you hear. And to do this, I'm going to discriminate slightly against those of you in the back of the hall, because I'm going to do an experiment which requires you to look very carefully at my lips. And those without binoculars or good eyesight in the back won't be able to. What I've done is to connect a device up here that's going to amplify my voice. And I'm going to make some sounds, and I'm going to ask you just by a show of hands what you hear from the sounds that I'm making. Okay, is that clear? So you'll hear some sounds, and I'm going to ask you what the sounds are.
Ba, ba. Ba, ba. Ba, ba. Ba, ba. Ba, ba.
If you heard da, da, put your hands up now. Okay, quite a few in the front. If you heard ba, ba, put your hands up now. If you heard something in between da and ba, or if you thought it changed as the speech went on, yeah, changed as the speech went on. Very good. So the experiment is proved because what I played you was a recording I made earlier in the office of me going ba, 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 ba. So the sound was completely constant. But those of you that could see my lips moving heard something different. Okay? Which is why those in the front, there was a smattering of difference. And you can do this, it's called the McGurk illusion, and it's a very powerful example of cross-modal perception. Okay? So what you see changes how you hear. And I think this is an unrecognized problem in how women are perceived in public. The last thing I'll say, I was reading a fascinating article last week from the Washington Post, Alexandra Petri wrote, and she imagined the following thing. She came up with a problem which I'm sure many of us are familiar with. A woman in a meeting will say something simple like, I don't agree with you. And everyone else in the meeting goes, whoa, why are you so aggressive? You know, hey, calm down, lady, we're all on the same team. And in fact, to combat this, she came up with a number of key statements from rhetoric and philosophy, and she rewrote them in the way that a woman would have to say them in order not to be perceived as aggressive. So I'll give you a couple. Give me liberty or give me death was the original one, as a man might say it. To be perceived as non-aggressive, a woman would have to say, Dave, if I could I just feel really like if we had liberty, it would be terrific. And the alternative would just be awful, you know. I mean, that's just how it strikes me. I don't know for sure. So the kinds of perceptual differences that... Now, the differences that we're talking about are cultural, my friends. They do not arise in the womb, and they are not determined by biology, but we see differently because we are enculturated to see differently. This isn't a red-green question, it's about how we were brought up. But we do need to think about these different perceptions, and notice that I think women and men perceive the same differences. We've got to think about that as well as behavior if we're going to solve the problem. That's me for now.